Good day, everyone. Before I proceed to my topic, I will introduce my name first. So, by the way, I am Ivy Saboiro Salvo, um, and today I am going to discuss the important topic in education entitled Digital Portfolios and Alternative Assessment. So, a practical guide to authentic learner-centered assessment. So, in today's educational environment, assessment is no longer limited to traditional written examinations. So, students can demonstrate their learning in many different ways. So, including projects, presentations, performances, reflections, videos, and other authentic activities. So digital portfolios and alternative assessment provide opportunities for learners to show not only what they know, but also what they can do, create, demonstrate, and improve. So in this presentation, um, I will discuss the meaning of digital portfolios and alternative assessment in their advantages and limitations. So example of their um, application and their importance in classroom and professional settings. So let us begin. Introduction and objectives. So define digital portfolios and alternative assessment. Explain advantages and limitations and give examples and realistic scenarios and then apply the concept in classroom and workplace settings. So for this presentation, I have several objectives. So first, I will define and explain the key concept of digital portfolios and alternative assessment. And then second, and I will discuss their major advantages and limitations. Third, I will provide examples and scenarios to help us understand how this assessment approaches work in actual situation. And then and finally, I will explain how digital portfolios and alternative assessment can be applied in real life classroom, workplace, and professional settings. So the purpose of this discussion is to understand that assessment should not simply be about giving grades. Instead, assessment should also help learners understand their strength, recognize areas improvement, and demonstrate their learning in meaningful ways. So what is digital portfolio? So, a purposeful digital collection of learner work may include documents, photos, videos, presentations, and reflections, and then shows progress, skills, achievement, and growth, and then focuses on meaningful evidence, not simply collecting files. So let us begin with the first important concept, the digital portfolio. So a digital portfolio is a purposeful collection of a learner's work stored in digital format. It may contain different types of evidence, such as documents, photographs, videos, presentations, projects, certificates, and written reflection. However, a digital portfolio is not simply a folder where students put everything they have done. The important word is purposeful. So students should carefully select work that demonstrate their learning, skills, accomplishment, and progress. For example, a student may include an initial draft of project and then show the improved final version. So the student can also explain what was learned during the process and what changes were made. So in this way, the portfolio show not only the final product but also the learning journey. So recent research also describes a portfolios and useful for continuous reflection, authentic assessment, and professional development. So therefore, a digital portfolio can provide a more complete picture of learning than a single examination. So what is alternative assessment? So assessment beyond traditional paper and pencil test, and then emphasize authentic performance and applications. Example, projects, presentations, demonstration for portfolios, and journals. Measures knowledge, skills, creativity, communication, and problem solving. So, the second concept is alternative assessment. Alternative assessment refers to assessment methods that go beyond traditional paper and pencil tests. Instead of asking students only to remember information, alternative assessment allow students to demonstrate what they can actually do, create, perform, explain, or apply. So some examples include projects, presentations, demonstration, portfolios, journals, role-playing activities, simulations, and performance tasks. So for example, instead of giving students a written examination about communication skills, a teacher might ask students to prepare and deliver a presentation. Mm, So in these situations, the teacher can assess not only knowledge but also communication, organization, confidence, creativity, and delivery. So alternative assessment is closely related to authentic and performance-based assessment because it can ask learners to perform tasks that resemble meaningful real-life situations. Therefore, alternative assessment allows teachers to say abilities that may not be fully demonstrated through traditional tests. Why it matters? Makes learning more visible and meaningful. Connects assessment with real-world performance, develop reflection, communication, creativity, and digital literacy, and encourages continuous improvement. So why are digital portfolios and alternative assessment important? So first, they make learning more visible and meaningful. Second, they connect assessment with real-world performance. Then third, they help develop important skills such as communication, creativity, collaboration, reflection, critical thinking, and digital literacy. They also encourage continuous improvement. When learners review their work, receive feedback, and make revision, assessment becomes part of the learning process. For teachers, Portfolios can also provide evidence of professional development and reflective practice. This is important because education is continuously changing. Teacher and learners need assessment and methods that can capture not only final result but also the process of learning and development. So the provided assessment outline also emphasizes connecting the topic to personal, professional, organizational, and current workplace practices. Conclusions and reflection. Digital portfolios organize evidence and growth. Then alternative assessment evaluate authentic performance. Then success requires clear goals, evidence, guidance, and fair criteria. Then reflection, what can I do? Create, demonstrate, and to summarize my discussion, digital portfolios are purposeful collections of digital evidence that demonstrate learning, progress, skills, and achievements. On the other hand, alternative assessment provide different ways of evaluating learning through authentic activities, projects, performances, and other meaningful tasks. Both approaches can provide a broader picture of student learning. However, successful implementation requires clear objectives, meaningful evidence, appropriate technology, sufficient guidance, and fair assessment criteria. My personal reflection is that assessment should not only ask, what do you know? It should also ask what you can do, what you create, um, and what you can demonstrate. And most importantly, how can you improve? How can you improve? So, what we look at assessment this way, assessment becomes more than a grading tool. It becomes a learning tool. So it gives learners an opportunity to understand their progress, take responsibility for their learning, and continuously improve. That concludes my discussion on digital portfolio and alternative assessment. Mm. Thank you very much for listening.